All right, welcome to day 2 of the Business Breakthrough Challenge, ladies. So yesterday we talked a lot about how to attract the right people into your world. And today what I really want to talk about is how to actually nurture that audience once you have them, signing up on your email list, or once you get them into your Facebook group, or wherever it is that you are going to host your people. So the number one thing that I want to talk about today is how you build relationships that lead to sales. Tomorrow we're going to talk about how to convert your leads into clients, buyers. But today we're really going to focus on how do you build that relationship in a way that will lead down the road to sales? Because I think that's what everybody wants to know. Like, how do you create content that converts? Well, first you need to build the relationship. So let's just talk about really on a surface level what a relationship is. I think we all hear in the online space a lot of the time that you need to build know, like, and trust. And I think that's pretty much what any relationship is built off of. If you're in your normal everyday life, you meet a new neighbor or you meet a new friend at a barbecue or something like that, and you get to know them, you start to like them, and then eventually, if you spend enough time with them, or if they give off the impression that they are trustworthy, then you start to build trust with them. So the other thing is that when you're building trust with someone, a lot of it comes from, especially in the online space, consistency. So showing up consistently, not constantly, but consistently is really important because it allows somebody to know that you are the person that is the expert in your field. You are somebody that shows up for their clients. You are somebody who shows up to serve their people, their audience, and that you literally will show up consistently enough that they believe that you are the person that can help them solve their problem. So I'm going to talk a little bit today just about how do we build that relationship. We can do it obviously through content. I'm just going to write these down. You can do it through content, which is going to include your social, and I'm going to put email in the content bucket too, because I think that we really need to get good at nurturing an email list because it is the asset that you own versus just posting and praying on social media all the time. You don't actually own anything to do with social media. Your account can get hacked. You can get shut down in a heartbeat. We see this happen all the time in the Instagram and Facebook space, where people are saying, in Facebook groups, like, somebody hacked my account, or Facebook froze my account and I don't know why. And that's really a tough spot to be in if all of your eggs are in that social media basket. So what I always say is the number one thing to focus on when you're building an audience is pulling people to your email list first, because it is an asset that you own and control. Okay, so obviously we're going to build relationships through content, right? Most of you have a really good idea of how to create amazing content. It's just that you haven't had enough of the right eyeballs on it, right? So yesterday we talked about how to build that audience so that more of the right people see your stuff. And then today we're talking about how we actually nurture that audience once they come into your world, because there's no point in building a huge community if you're not going to do anything with it, right? You're just leaving money on the table. So you do it through content, you do it through direct messages. Now, there's a very big difference, if you ask me, between sending cold pitches and cold messages to strangers on the internet versus DMing people who have come into your world, and you can actually say, hey, like, thanks for signing up for my whatever it was event. The amount of, I don't know if you want to call it goodwill, the amount of trust that you will build with somebody if you actually just take the time to send a quick direct message, whether that person responds or not, like 99% of the time, they're still going to see that you showed up in their inbox. And also, if you personalize the message, it gives them a really good, they have that warm, fuzzy feeling about you from the get-go, which builds know, like, and trust. So it's really important that you take the time when you're building your audience to actually reach out to them and say, hey, how's it going? You mentioned that, when they signed up for XYZ event, I always love to ask entry questions coming in. Just so that I have a feeling of where that person's at with their business. If you are a health coach or a life coach or whatever, you're going to want to ask a specific question that gives you a reason to reach out and start a conversation with that person. So how do we build relationships? Through our content, through direct messaging the people who are warm now to us, not cold strangers on the internet. And then the one that I love also the most is events. I love talking about events. So Why events? Because you can build know, like, and trust very quickly in a live setting. And so even if people aren't catching you live, they're still able to catch the replay of you delivering information live. The majority of my audience catches replays. It's just how it is. I stopped taking it personally a long time ago. And yes, I could stress out about how many people I actually got to show up live, or I could just go show up, deliver great content, and then send them the replay, and then follow up with them in the DMs and say, hey, did you catch the, day 2 or whatever? I know that was something that you were struggling with or you're asking about. I think there's some really valuable stuff in there. See how now I have a reason to be able to go out and actually start that conversation in the DMs. This is going to be really important, that you understand how to get comfortable in the DMs with your warm audience, because you're going to be able to get so much feedback there, not just pushy sales stuff. That's not what I'm teaching ever. What I mean is you're going to get invaluable feedback in the DMs that you cannot get anywhere else, so that you can add to your market research on a constant basis. Having a real conversation with somebody is going to get you way further than any guessing or throwing spaghetti against the wall. And I know that the ladies that I work with, they don't want to guess anymore. They just want to know exactly what they have to do to get to the next level with signing clients. And almost all the time, we can fix any problem in your business if you just go talk to more of your potential ideal clients to find out what they're actually struggling with, where they're at, where they feel stuck, where they feel they need to put focus, where they need to, it's like the old marketing, like the old marketing adage where it's like, you have to give people what they want in order to deliver what they need. So what that means is when you are building relationships, you really need to be listening to what people are telling you so that you can go create more awesome, nurturing content. Because if one person's saying it to you, other people are thinking it in your audience, right? Because you're pulling in a lot of the same or similar type people. So going into the DMs and talking to real people is amazing. It also is really helpful when you stack it with events. So anyone who comes to any of my events, I really try my best to always get into the DMs, whether it's before or at the beginning or during my event. I always try to reach out to every single person just to say, hey, like, I know you said you were struggling with this, like, tell me a little bit more about it. Or today I sent out messages saying like, hey, tell me a little bit more about where you are at in your business and where you want to go. And I can drop some advice in here. I love to coach for free in the DMs, during my events, because I get so much live feedback from people. So they're like, oh, I didn't quite catch the replay yet, but I'll definitely check in tonight. And then I'm like, great, I'll check back in with you tomorrow, kind of thing. And it's never to put people on the spot. I think we're so used to being harassed in the DMs. You just have to really break through that noise and be the different person. Meaning you can't, well, most of you, or 98% of you, we talked about this yesterday, are never going to send cold messages to strangers. But I think that in my experience working with women, especially, if you have a point of contact or you have a reason to be reaching out to somebody saying, hey, I can help you with this, like, tell me a little bit more about this, I'm happy to help. And it's just like, it's such a different connection point. So when we're talking about nurturing our audience and building relationships, we can't just allow social media content to do all the heavy lifting for us, because it doesn't. The algorithms don't show it to enough people. So you have to couple it with a strategy that gets you in front of more of the right people, right? And then also in a way where you can teach, you can inspire, you can connect, and you can invite them to take a next step with you. Sometimes that's coming to your next event. Sometimes that's coming and booking a call with you. Sometimes that's just jumping into the DMs or grabbing something else that you're giving away. It doesn't really matter. You just always want to have a next step so that you can keep the conversation going. That's what builds this relationship. So when I say build relationships, I don't mean, this is another thing I see in the DMs all the time that drives me crazy. People come and they'll be like, hi, how are you? Well, if you are a very busy mompreneur, you don't have time to answer that question. I mean, I know I don't. So when somebody starts with that or just says that in my DMs, I just don't even respond. But if you have a reason for reaching out and you say, thanks for registering for my event, or, hey, I saw that you said, or I love what you did the other day, I was watching something you did live, or like have a reason that why you're starting that conversation. We would never just when we're building relationships, you know how you see the same person at school drop off all the time and you just have like a very surface level conversation and you're just happy to be like, hi, how's it going today? And then you're like gone again. That's not building a meaningful relationship. You're not showing up as an expert in that space, right? So we want to just put the same thing in play when it comes to our online business. Number one, you want to attract the right people into your world. Number two, you want to start building that relationship from the get-go. So really be mindful of the difference between hosting a collaborative event that's going to pull in 100 of the right people versus a giant event that's going to pull in, 10,000 of the right people. You're never going to be able to go and talk to 10,000 people. And for most of the women that I work with, they have an offer that's at a price point where you want that personal touch, that personal connection, because somebody needs to know that they can trust you before they can make that buying decision. We're going to get a lot more into this tomorrow, but the 3 things that somebody really needs to answer before they will actually whip out their credit card is your process, is the vehicle that you're teaching using, is the process, the plan, the framework, the strategy, the whatever it is that you use to get them results, is that better than something they've tried before, or would that vehicle work for them, right? They're curious about this. So for example, somebody comes into my world, if they don't think that events are going to be able to help them attract, nurture, and convert their people, like if they can't see that events can actually do that, then they're not ever going to want to come in and work with me because they're not sold on the vehicle. But if they're like, yeah, no, I know that events can work, absolutely, I just have to know how to run them properly or how to streamline them so that it's, I keep it simple instead of getting too complicated, or you just have to, somebody has to come in and really see themselves in that vehicle. So let's talk about like a little red car. They have to see themselves driving in that vehicle. If they can't ever see themselves like, oh, I would never fit in that vehicle because I'm 6'7" and you have to be 5'5" or shorter to get in that car, like, do you know what I'm saying? They have to be able to see themselves using that plan, that process, that whatever it is that you're teaching or implementing for them. So that's number one. That's the number one question they're going to ask. Number two, they're going to say, are you the person that can actually help me, get to XYZ goal? And sometimes that is, have you done it before? Sometimes that is, have you taken other people there before? Third way would be like, are you the type of person that can keep me on track and keep me accountable, right? Are you the kind of person that understands what I'm going through in my life? I think for a lot of us, if you're especially ambitious moms, it's like, we don't want to work with men who don't have any concept of what it would be like to try to balance work and like home life, because they can't relate and we can't relate to them. And so for them to tell us a strategy to use where they're, let's say you have to be on social media 2 hours or 3 hours a day, posting, interacting consistently, cold messaging strangers, like doing all the things, like that's not your red car, right? You don't like that red car. So you're not going to be able to go and work with a coach that's how they teach, or that's like, they just don't understand your life. And when we're talking about helping other women or helping your ideal client, you really have to have that connection piece, that relatability. Otherwise, it's like if you're trying to teach somebody how to lose weight, but you've never lost weight before, that's very difficult. If you are a life coach who's never been through any of the adversity that you're talking about, then somebody's going to find it really hard to whip out a credit card and drop $5,000 to work with you, right? So we have to make sure that as we're going through building these relationships, we have to be super relatable. And the fastest way to gain that kind of know, like, and trust is by sharing your personal stories. So I think that the number one question is, do you have the vehicle that could actually help me? Number two, are you the coach? Would you understand where I'm at and how to get me where I need to go? And then number three is, will I be able to get there? Right? There's always that question in the back of somebody's mind, whether the timing's right, or do they want to spend the money? Do they want to allocate money towards whatever problem it is that they want to solve? How bad do they want to solve this thing? And so sometimes it's about whether they feel like they will hold themselves accountable, or whether they can even do it, right? If somebody's looking to lose 100 pounds and they don't think that they can give up the McDonald's drive-through or something, I don't know, this is a random example, but like, if they don't think that they can give up that thing that's holding them back, then it's very hard, even if you're the best weight loss coach in the whole world, it's very hard to get that person enrolled into your program if they don't believe in themselves, if they don't believe they can do it. So I think that's a really interesting one. tomorrow we're going to talk a lot more about sales and conversions and overcoming objections. But one of the biggest ones that people forget about is whether that person believes that they can do it. Right? Do you have the right vehicle? Yeah, I can see how that works. That little red car that can get us, from A to B. Are you the coach that can help me with that? Yes. Or let's call you the mechanic in this case. Like, can you help me in this little red car get to where I want to go? Yes, we'll both fit in there. We can go together. You know what I mean? But then on the other hand, it's just like, well, do I want to do this? Am I going to actually follow through? Is the timing right? Do I have the capacity in my life right now? Do I want to spend money on this? There's all these different questions that come up. When you're creating content, you need to be addressing those things because those are legitimate concerns that somebody has in their life, especially if you're selling high ticket stuff. Is it legitimate to expect that if somebody's going to drop $10,000 on a coaching program, for example, that they might have to check with their spouse? I mean, a lot of people are like, that's an objection that we need to overcome. And it's just like, no, realistically, in a lot of relationships, marriages, whatever, that's like a pretty reasonable thing to expect. I remember when I made my first big investment in my business, it was like a $16,000 coaching package for a year. And there's no way I would have gone and dropped that much money without talking to my husband first. And that's not an objection because I didn't want to do it. That's like a legitimate discussion that I needed to have before I made that next step. So you just have to understand when we're building relationships that there's going to be these three questions kind of rolling around in the back of somebody's mind about whether you have the vehicle that can help them, whether they think that you're the right person to help them get there, and whether they believe they themselves can actually do it. So I know this is like a lot of the building the relationship part it's easy, but it's hard at the same time because I think a lot of us overcomplicate it, and a lot of people online try to rush it, where like you can build know, like, and trust very quickly with somebody if they come into your world, but chances are they're gonna want to take a beat to really get to know you and see what you're all about before they drop a credit card on a even a $2,000 offer, right? $2,000 is enough that makes somebody go, okay, wait. Can this vehicle get me there? Can this person coach me? Is this the mentorship that I need? Is this the guidance that I'm looking for? Do I really think I can solve this problem myself? So when you're talking about your content, your conversations that you're having in the DMs, you're trying to move things forward, but you're never trying to push or manipulate. That's a very big distinction that I wanted to make. But the biggest thing I want to talk about today is, why do we run events for nurturing? Because it is the fastest way to find your ready right now buyers. And what do I mean by that? Well, when you're creating content, you are literally trying to inspire people. You're trying to connect. You're trying to find that relatability point, right? You're trying to make somebody feel comfortable in your world. And you're also trying to invite them into the next step. But all of those things, maybe I should write that down for you. So let's just say right in here, all of this, we're going to connect, inspire, teach, and invite. Those are the four things that you want to be doing constantly with your content, with your DMs, and especially wrapped all up into one event. Connect, inspire, teach, invite. So invite just looks like a call to action. What is the next step they can take with you? Sometimes it's, give me a hell yeah if you agree. Sometimes it's drop this word below and I'll send you XYZ free freebie. Sometimes it's, hey, if you want to know more about this, or you want to implement this in your life or your business and your health, whatever, here's the link to register for my upcoming boot camp or workshop or seminar or whatever it is that you're inviting them to. You're always wanting to invite them to take a next step with you, because every time they take a next step, you will learn in the nurture process whether they are the right fit or the wrong fit for you. And so that's another thing that I really want to point out is sometimes people are like, okay, well, I had 17 women that signed up for my event, but only 6 of them showed up live and only 2 of them purchased. And it's like, yeah, but you also have the ability now to go and have real conversations with 17 people. And some of them might not be the right fit. And you're going to know that after getting into the DMs with them. Talk to real people. I love talking about that all the time. But the more you talk to real people, the more you'll realize that they're the right fit for you too. Because don't forget, this is your business and you get to work with whoever you want. And so some of the people are not going to be the right fit for you, but you would never know that until you're in the nurturing sequence and you're really talking to them. So why events? Well, because you can connect, you can inspire, you can teach. Obviously, I think we all go to how can we teach in a webinar, in a challenge, in a workshop, in whatever. And a lot of people are there for the teach, but then they're also going to get to know you, like you trust you, because you're going to tell stories, you're going to connect, you're going to have usually humor or some kind of, like, depending on your personality, your style is going to, your vibe, your personality comes out when and shines when you are in your element teaching what it is that you love to talk about. So you're going to teach, you're going to inspire, you're going to connect, and then you're going to invite them to take a next step with you. So like I said, sometimes that's, I have another event coming up, or sometimes that's, hey, if you want a free call, you know, here's the link to go book it, get on my calendar. Or it can just be as simple as, hey, drop me this number or this, you know, word or whatever, and I will personally drop you, you know, XYZ advice on what's happening in your world. So long story short, events are super powerful because as soon as somebody registers for one of your events, you know that they have now stuck their hand up in the air and been like, yes, I'm interested in this topic. I want to learn more. I need help with this. And that gives you an opening to be able to go in and build a relationship with that person. That's another thing. Events are not always supposed to be the perfect conversion event. In fact, I just was in a coaching program for over 12 months with a 7-figure earner, and her whole method is teaching the live launch model, right? So, you know, having a challenge or whatever that you pull everyone to. And even in her business now, after dialing it in and making 7 figures for multiple years in a row, it still requires people getting into the direct messages with people that attend in order to sell their program. And so I think that's a huge piece that's missing. Is a lot of women think, okay, I'm going to come into the space, I can build my audience, and then I'll just have these magic words that will somehow just make people, you know, pull out their credit cards. And when you're selling low ticket, that happens a lot. But when you're selling high ticket, you usually have to have some sort of a relationship built with somebody in their inbox. So I just want you to get really comfortable with talking to real people. It is not scary at all when you have a reason to be in that inbox, that somebody else on the other end, on the receiving end, is going to be excited that you popped in. I can't tell you how many times I've had women say, oh my gosh, like this is really you talking in the DMs, right? And I'm like, yeah. Or I'll voice note so that they actually know it's me. So that's another, we're going to talk about that tomorrow with more of the conversion side. When you're building a relationship, if you can get into the DMs and get voice noting, that's an awesome way to do it. I never recommend a voice note for the first message you send because that person doesn't really know you yet. But I do recommend if they, you know, write back and it's something that you can explain better with a voice note, get into the voice notes as fast as possible. Why? Because it builds the relationship faster. And that's not always to say that it's going to result in a sale, but you are going to always get awesome market research feedback from those conversations. You're probably going to get referrals out of those conversations, even if that person's not the one that buys. And you're going to be able to know if that's the right fit person for you to keep nurturing the relationship with, right? So I think we have to enjoy this part more. We have to celebrate this part more. Oh, it's kind of messy. Build relationships. All I'm going to tell you about this is, yes, you want to do content. How many of you have tried to do this nurture sequence? Actually, how many of you have tried to do attract, nurture, and convert all with just posting on social media before? You're probably laughing right now because a lot of us have done that. And I did that for, I think, my first 3 years in online business. And I just couldn't understand why my business wasn't going anywhere. But the funny thing is that when I was in corporate, I was super successful in sales, and I would have never only done social media content to think that I was going to land these giant insurance clients. I would have never done that. I had to go out. I cold called for a living. I hated it. But once I got enough clients, then a lot of like word of mouth and stuff started to happen. So there is going to be a tipping point in your business where you don't have to go out and cold message people. But I like to do it in a more aligned way, I would call it, which is to only be DMing people that you know are coming into your world, who are raising their hand saying, I'm interested in that. And then it becomes more of an act of service instead of salesy. When you go in and say, hey, I saw that you're struggling with this. Like, I'd love to help. Tell me a little bit more about your situation. That's basically what you're doing. That's what the DM strategy is, right? We don't overcomplicate it. You don't go in there and be all crazy and pitchy. You just build a relationship, meaning find out what that person needs, find out whether, they're willing to take the next steps, and then find out if you are the right fit to help them or not before you invite them, before you pitch them, before you sell to them. You really need to find the right fit people for you too, right? Not just the other way around. Okay, so in summary today, we are talking about how you nurture your audience. Yesterday, we talked about how to attract them in using collaborative events, simple collaborative events. Now you have an email list, you have a Facebook community built, you have, things are starting to move. So now what do? You have to go in and nurture those leads. Most of you are going to sell probably a $2,000 to $10,000 package in your businesses right now. If you have higher than that, then that's fine too. This obviously works. If you are looking to sell those higher ticket items, you need to build these relationships so that somebody trusts you. So I just want to recap the 3 things that are going to roll around in the back of their head. Is this a vehicle or a plan or a process that can help me? Is this the right person to help me? And how do I know that? And then third, can I actually do this? Right? So you have to really help that person get over those humps. And sometimes it's just a matter of borrowing your belief, right? If you are a life coach who knows that somebody can take a huge jump out of corporate into, I have one client that helps women literally leave their corporate jobs and jump into entrepreneurship, but she does the part where they're prepping to leave, as opposed to me, who helps them actually go out and build the business once they're out of corporate. You know what I mean? Everybody has like a different spot that they coach on, and you have to be really clear in your mind, like who it is that you want to pull in and work with in that space. But anyways, so I can't remember where I was going with that one. Sorry, my baby was up a lot last night and I have not slept very well. Anyways, long story short, when we're building these relationships, we have to just really start to understand that this is the fun part. You pull people to events. Oh, right. We were talking about attracting them in with your collaborative events. Keep it super simple. Start to build that relationship right away as they're coming in by sending them a direct message and just saying, hey, thanks so much for registering for this event. Excited that you're here. Hope you get some great insight, blah, blah, blah. Now you've already started a conversation, so you don't feel like a creeper when you come in later and ask them if they want to come to a different event, right? But events are the fastest way to attract, nurture, and convert, because you get those ready right now buyers raising their hand. Then you don't feel like a creeper direct messaging them to build a relationship. Go in and help people. Serve versus selling. It's always going to help you. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about how to convert, how to take those conversations from a place of service to a place of sales. But it doesn't have to be scary, and it's certainly not supposed to be pushy or manipulative or malicious or anything like that. We are literally going to say, hey, if you want my help with this, here's how you can work with me. That's how it has to be. You don't have to sit there and say, here's all these objections and we need to jump over them. No, we're just building a normal relationship, especially if you got some rapport going with somebody. Inviting them to take the next step is actually really easy at that point. So hopefully that's helpful. Today we talked about nurturing. Events, I think, are the fastest way to do it, because you get that ready right now hand raising going on. And it also gives you a lot of feedback, whether that topic is popular in your community or whatever. It also allows you to have content that goes out that's marketing towards those events. So it's kind of like a double, it's a double size or supersize your marketing efforts, because you're pulling them towards something that's a free event that's allowing you to ask them to take the next step, right? When you're creating content, you want to have something to invite them to. So events are awesome for that. They're like the anchors in your business. So you use collaborative events to bring your audience in, and then you nurture and convert next, right? So I love using events. And a lot of the time, once you get good at events, you're going to sign a lot of clients straight from your events. But we don't want to put the pressure on the event itself to be the conversion mechanism. We want to really use events to help you build relationships, to get that market research. The more people you talk to in the DMs, the better your messaging, the better your content, the better your events become. So it's like a really cool ecosystem that you create when you build relationships. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. Tomorrow we're going to talk about sales. That is my favorite thing. So this week we're all the main thing we're talking about is how to attract, nurture, and convert using events, simple events. That's what I want to tell you about. And tomorrow I really want to talk to you a little bit more about what do the DMs actually look like, and how do you take someone from being on the fence or being in a conversation with you where you've been giving a lot of free stuff away. And then how do you convert that then into an invitation to come in and work with you? And I also think we should talk a lot about hearing the word no, because I think people are so scared of it that they never even start. Like if you're so scared that you might have a no, and you don't do any of this because you're like, oh, or you assume that you're going to get to a no, it's going to affect everything that you do, all the action that you take. So we're going to cover that too, because I think there's a lot of fear around sales and a fear around asking someone if they want to come in and work with you. And I think if you realize that you have to be good at sales in order to run a business, then we just want to change that conversation in your head. But it's a heck of a lot easier if you've already been nurturing your audience and your leads, right? Okay, hopefully that was helpful, and have a great night, and we will see you tomorrow when we talk about selling.